Have you ever come across a story in the Bible that made you pause and wonder about the mysteries of life and death? One such captivating figure is Enoch, a man whose earthly journey seems to defy the ordinary rules of life. Enoch's story is not just a brief note in the genealogy of Genesis, it's a profound lesson on spirituality and divine favor. Enoch appears in Genesis 5, where his life is summarized in just a few verses, yet these few lines are incredibly significant. Enoch walked faithfully with God. Then he was no more, because God took him away. Unlike others listed in the Bible's genealogies, Enoch does not have an ordinary ending. He does not die, but is taken by God. This unique departure from life sparks curiosity and invites us to explore what it meant to walk with God so closely that the end of life is not death, but a direct transition to being with God. What does walking with God entail? For Enoch, it involved a relationship so intimate and aligned with the divine that it transcended the typical human experience. Walking with God suggests a day-to-day life lived in constant communion, obedience, and alignment with God's will. It's a metaphor for a lifestyle so spiritually connected that physical death becomes irrelevant. Enoch's life, therefore, becomes a model of spiritual excellence. He lived in such harmony with God's ways that after 365 years, God simply took him to heaven. The brevity of Enoch's account in the Bible contrasts sharply with the depth of its implications. While we know very little about his daily life, the impact of what is recorded is profound. In a list filled with names and lifespans, Enoch stands out not because of what he did, but because of how he lived his faith. His life challenges us to consider the quality of our spiritual walk. Are we merely going through the motions, or are we truly walking in a way that could, figuratively speaking, transcend death? Enoch's story is not isolated to the book of Genesis. He is mentioned in other biblical texts, like the letter to the Hebrews and the book of Jude, where his prophetic role and his walking with God are emphasized. The book of Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 5, reinforces his unique destiny, stating, "By faith, Enoch was taken from this life, so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God." This passage highlights faith as the crucial element in Enoch's life. His faith was so pleasing to God that it altered the natural course of his human existence. The book of Jude gives us another glimpse of Enoch's character, citing a prophecy attributed to him about judgment and the coming of the Lord with thousands of his holy ones to judge everyone. This aspect of Enoch as a prophet shows that his walk with God wasn't passive. It was active and engaged with the morale and spiritual struggles of his time. Reflecting on Enoch's life, we can see a powerful narrative about the possibilities that open up when a person lives in unwavering faithfulness to God. His story invites us to examine our paths and consider how our spiritual walk influences our destiny. Enoch walked with God, and his path led him directly into the divine presence, bypassing death and entering into legend. While Enoch's journey might seem distant and mythical, it carries a very real and accessible invitation for us today. It challenges us to deepen our relationship with the divine, to live lives that are so aligned with God's will that our spiritual journey transcends the limitations of our physical existence. Thus, the story of Enoch is more than an ancient biblical account. It is a call to elevate our spiritual lives, to live with such integrity and faith that we too might walk with God in ways that transform our everyday experiences. It is an encouragement that the depth of our faith can have profound implications on how we live and how we leave this world. Enoch's narrative, though brief, is packed with meaning and serves as a profound reminder of the spiritual journey's power and potential. It encourages us to strive for a life so full of faith that perhaps, like Enoch, our final transition might be just another step closer to the divine, a seamless move into eternity. Now, let's move on to another fascinating biblical figure whose departure from earth is just as mysterious and miraculous: Elijah. The story of Elijah is one filled with fiery passion, bold prophecies, and ultimately a dramatic exit that skips the clutches of death entirely. Elijah, a prophet in the kingdom of Israel, was known for his unwavering stand against the worship of Baal, a popular pagan deity at the time. His life was marked by confrontations with evil kings, miraculous demonstrations of God's power, and relentless advocacy for the return to the worship of the one true God. In the book of 1 Kings, Elijah's adventures range from raising the dead to calling down fire from heaven. One of the most remarkable moments in Elijah's story occurs in 1 Kings 18, during a confrontation on Mount Carmel. Here, Elijah challenges the prophets of Baal to a test of divine power, which ends with God sending fire to consume Elijah's sacrifice. This powerful display reaffirms the might of God and discredits the prophets of Baal, solidifying Elijah's role as a key defender of the faith. But it's not just his life that makes Elijah so memorable. It's also his extraordinary exit from this world. In 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 11, we read, "As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind." This spectacle, witnessed by his successor Elisha, is nothing short of cinematic. Imagine seeing a fiery chariot swoop down from the sky, not to bring destruction, but to carry a faithful servant home. This mode of departure speaks volumes about the special place Elijah held in the heart of God. It was not merely a quiet disappearance. It was a glorious and public affirmation of his prophetic mission and its divine approval. By bypassing death, Elijah's story reinforces the idea that God rewards profound faith and dedication with extraordinary grace. Moreover, Elijah's story doesn't end with his ascent into heaven. He appears again in the New Testament during the transfiguration of Jesus, where he stands alongside Moses, conversing with Christ. This appearance is significant as it ties the prophetic work of Elijah to the messianic mission of Jesus, illustrating the continuity and fulfillment of God's plan through his prophets. In reflecting on Elijah's life and heavenly ascent, we are reminded of the power of faith and the potential of divine intervention. Elijah's life encourages us to stand firm in our beliefs and to act with courage, knowing that our lives can reflect the divine power when we are fully committed to God's will. Elijah's narrative also poses a challenge. How do we respond to God's call in our lives? Like Elijah, are we ready to confront injustice and advocate for truth, even when it means standing alone? His story is not just a historical account. It's a call to action, a reminder that faith involves not just belief, but bold, decisive action. Ultimately, Elijah's ascent to heaven is a testament to the life-changing impact of living in close communion with God. His story assures us that while our challenges may be formidable, the rewards of faithfulness are beyond what we can imagine. This miraculous event not only marked the conclusion of his earthly ministry, but also promised that those who, like Elijah, live in fervent obedience to God can look forward to divine acknowledgement and reward. As we think about Elijah and the fiery chariot, let's remember that our own journeys, though perhaps less dramatic, are no less watched over by the divine. In the challenges and trials we face, the spirit of Elijah's courage and faith can inspire us to keep moving forward, confident in the knowledge that God is with us, guiding our steps towards an ultimate and perhaps glorious homecoming. Finally, let's explore the story of Moses, a towering figure in both the Bible and the broader context of religious history. Unlike Enoch and Elijah, Moses' death is recorded in the scriptures, but his unique relationship with God and some traditional Jewish legends invite us to think about his departure in a mystical light. Moses, the leader who brought the Israelites out of Egyptian bondage, is one of the most prominent and revered prophets in the Bible. His life was marked by miracles, from parting the Red Sea to receiving the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai. His closeness to God was such that the Bible says in Numbers 12, verse 8, "With him I speak face to face clearly and not in riddles. He sees the form of the Lord." This level of intimacy with God is unmatched in the scriptural narratives of other prophets. As Moses' life draws to a close, the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 34, verses 5 to 6 tells us, "And Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in Moab, as the Lord had said. He buried him in Moab, in the valley opposite Beth Peor. But to this day, no one knows where his grave is." The mysterious circumstances of his burial, done by God himself, add a layer of divine secrecy and sanctity to his death. This passage has led to much speculation and reverence regarding his final moments. Jewish tradition holds various views on Moses' death. Some rabbinical interpretations suggest that Moses' soul was taken by God in a kiss, implying a gentle and unique transition from life to death, highlighting the extraordinary nature of his relationship with the divine. This view is poetic, suggesting that his departure was as miraculous as his life. Moses' life, packed with divine encounters and acts of faith, sets a profound example for us. His leadership under God's guidance, his boldness in confronting Pharaoh, and his dedication to his people show us the power of divine calling and the responsibility it carries. Moses teaches us about the weight of leadership and the necessity of close communion with God in fulfilling our life's purpose. In thinking about Moses' death and the mysterious absence of his grave, we are reminded that his legacy was meant to be focused on his life and teachings rather than a burial site. This lack of a grave site helps to emphasize the eternal impact of his teachings and the law he received from God, which continue to influence millions of people across generations. Moreover, Moses' appearances in other parts of the Bible reinforce his enduring role. He appears alongside Elijah during the transfiguration of Jesus in the New Testament, where they both converse with Christ. This event links Moses with the prophetic tradition that culminates in Jesus, underscoring his pivotal role in the spiritual heritage of Christianity and Judaism. Moses' story compels us to consider our own legacy. What are we called to do, and how deeply are we committed to that calling? Moses faced doubt and opposition, yet his faith and obedience to God's commands were unwavering. His life challenges us to think about our dedication to our beliefs and our willingness to follow through on our commitments despite the obstacles. As we reflect on Moses' life and mysterious end, it's clear that his story is not just about the journey of the Israelites from slavery to the Promised Land. It's also about the journey of a man drawing ever closer to God, learning and fulfilling his divine purpose. His story is a testament to the transformative power of faith and obedience. In conclusion, the life and death of Moses, like those of Enoch and Elijah, blend the historical with the mystical, inviting us to explore deeper meanings and implications in our faith journeys. Each of these men left an indelible mark on their world and on the sacred texts that tell their stories, urging us to live lives of faith, dedication, and profound impact. Let their stories inspire us to consider how we, too, can walk in such closeness with God that our lives, and perhaps even our departures, can be marked by the divine,